I think one positive step taking place right now, too, is CAPD is now requiring both PT and PTA programs to post publicly on their website a financial fact sheet stating this is how much our program costs. This is what the average student loan debt is from graduates last year. And they have to update it every single year. So it can't be old data, which is great. I just really hope that the word gets out more to prospective students to look at that. And when they're shopping around for schools, and that may help drive prices down potentially, or maybe just not increase as much as possible.
Welcome to PT Pinecast. We say the best conversations happen at happy hour. Welcome to ours. We've got several guests. I think lately I've been doing a lot of either me talking to the microphone and the camera or one guest, but I like it. I get more energy around people. I'm extroverted, but I also get energy from people. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. You can get energy from people and not be extrovert. But returning to the show, Justin Berry. Justin, welcome back to the program.
Thank you. Oh, I want to say, too, I just want to say congratulations, by the way.
What did I do?
Saw on social media a couple days ago that you are on the APTA CSM bingo card.
Oh, this was funny. So yes, and someone just actually screenshotted it and texted it to me a minute ago. So let's take a second to talk about this. There's a Twitter account, and I'm going to make sure I get it right. It is Fake Physical Therapy Statistics or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
I'm quickly looking it up because someone just screenshotted it to me. Fake Physical Therapy Statistics. That's what it is. And they just sort of tweet out, it's fake PT at Fake PT Stats, Fake Physical Therapy Statistics. And they just tweet out ridiculous, like 72% of PTs would prefer to wear a polo shirt. They just make things up, but they're funny. And that's what, if you can't laugh at yourself in your own profession, then you can't say anything about anybody else. But yeah, they put out this bingo card. Here's the thing. I don't know the person that runs this account, but maybe I do, and I don't know. So it might be one of my friends, but they put out this bingo card and they actually made it. And for you watching the broadcast, the live stream, there it is. Let's talk about some of the other. So yeah, I'm on there. Take a selfie with Jimmy McKay, and I was like, "Who is this person? How do they know me?" Make a random Mary McMillan reference. There's always Mary McMillan cutouts everywhere. Get APTA president's autograph, Roger Herr, always taking pictures with the students a lot. Accidentally attend the wrong session. Have any of you, and we'll introduce the guests in a minute, but Tricia and Steven, have anybody ever sat down and then been like, ooh, I'm in the wrong room? Have you done that?
I have not. There's been a few that, based on the title I attended, and
That's
then
not your fault.
It was not what I was
not your fault.
But no, I've never been in the wrong room.
You would not get a stamp on your bingo card for that one. Imbibe and free booze from an exhibitor. They're always throwing their party. Come to my, salon F, and we'll have a whatever. And then, I like this one. Wearing more greater than or equal to 5 ribbons on your name tag.
Right. Yeah.
I call that the wizard beard. I'm like, who can have the wisest, longest wizard beard with the most campaign ribbons? Justin, introduce who you brought with you this time.
These are a couple of colleagues, Steven and Tricia from Tricia University, and I'll have them introduce themselves, I guess, and talk about their backgrounds. They're from the DPT program there in Tricia.
Okay. Thanks, Justin. Thanks for having us too, Jimmy. This is very exciting. I have been a PT for 26 years, originally from Fort Wayne. My early on career started out in acute care and inpatient rehab, was in rehab leadership for about 12 years before I came over to Trine, and I've been at Trine for a little over 7 years as the Director of Education and an Associate Professor.
Cool. Thanks for coming. I'm glad to hear you're excited. This is as good as it gets, though. It's all downhill from there. So good luck with it. Hold on to that feeling. Steven, tell us about you.
So I have a parallel experience with Tricia. I also have 26 years of experience, graduated from Creighton University. Was the second DPT cohort in the United States, actually.
Wait,
kind of cool. Spent 17 years in management through Northern Indiana, and have been at Trine going on 9 years. I'm the Director of Integrated Clinical Education. So the first 5 semesters of our curriculum are integrated clinical education, and then I pass the baton, so to speak, to Tricia, and she takes them the rest of the way. So it's Tricia and I are great partners, and we have a lot of fun in Clinet.
Well, welcome, guys. Justin, like you've been on the show before. I feel like this is similar but not the same. We're going to talk about more research. How would you frame it? Like this would be my parallel to, and I'll be talking. Before we hit record, we're talking about my presentation that I get to give at CSM on Friday, 3 to 5 in the section. See, it's a plug. I feel like it's similar but not the same in terms of topics. So what are we talking about today? Did some more research on things that are near and dear to people's hearts.
Yeah, I guess when I was on your show before, once I was talking about some research I had done on DPT student loan debt. And then another time last year, I believe, Justin Tammany from Texas and I were on because we'd both done research regarding productivity requirements.
Right.
This research that the three of us have been doing, it's kind of interesting. We had all met, I believe it was CSM, was it 2020 in Denver?
Yeah, that sounds like 5 years and 5 minutes ago, but yeah, keep going.
Exactly. But I was going to say one nice thing I think is how we all got together is we were talking after a presentation that we had similar research interests. So I think it's important always at conferences, if there's someone presenting that has similar research interests to you, don't be afraid to talk to them, because now look, we've been doing some research and we've done some presentations and we have some publications on review and everything. So it's been great. So what we did, we're talking about some different ideas about looking not just the same old student loan debt type research, asking how much debt people have. So we came up with a pretty, now in retrospect, long survey that we had PTs and PTAs who had graduated over the past 10 years complete over a variety of things. We asked about, first off, would they do PT school again or PTA school again based on their student loan debt? What impacts, professional and personal impacts, has their student loan debt created? We also asked them about if they received any financial literacy education while they were in school, and if so, what types, and if so, have they followed it? So we have quite a bit of information that just came from this one data set.
So before we get into the results, right, because I'm not a research guy, but I've learned enough because I've talked to enough smart people. That's actually a life hack. You should do this. Is if you don't have to be smart about something, you just talk to people who are smart about it, right? So I like this topic because I'm on the social medias, right? Just talked about the bingo card and Twitter, and I feel like people throw out a lot of anecdotes to a lot of things that you and I have talked about, Justin.
Mm-hmm.
They throw out a lot of personal experiences, and then they extrapolate that, and they go, everybody must feel the same way. Everybody must be experiencing this. And then people like you guys on the screen are like, well, can't really say that unless we measure it and ask people and test these things. Do science, essentially, is what I'm going to say. So this is cool because it's really, it's a chance to take a shot at better answering the question. And of course, we're never going to know, which keeps you guys in business, which is a smart business model. It's like further research is required in this area. Exactly. How has no one started selling T-shirts that just say like future research is still required in this area? And then all the research would be like, that's funny, I'll buy that. You could retire.
You could probably just make some of those up and throw them into the crowd Friday at 3:00 during your presentation.
Got it. Takes notes. All right. So how many people? I'm smart enough to know how many people did you ask? Like, give us like a ballpark. I like to picture this because it's hard to get people to click like on a post or retweet something or pay attention or spend time. And I use those words, those transactional phrases a lot, because pay and spend, because you want attention and time, is not easy, especially when it's a survey, because you really benefit from that now, but the person taking it might benefit later when the research comes out. So you're asking them to forego short-term, doing whatever they want to take your survey. So getting any one person to do this. So how many people did you actually get to respond to this?
We had 1,300 PTs and 234 PTAs.
So like 15, I'm not good at math, 1,500.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is that's a decent sized theater. I mean, that's cool. So like, were you happy with that? I'm always interested in researchers and scale. Like, where was that in terms of like when you started, where you're like, how many, you're probably, I'm going to get 10 million people. Probably not. But is this more than, equal to, or less than you thought you might get or wanted to get? Those are two questions.
Well, we sent out lots and lots of surveys. We had emails from the licensing bureaus from multiple states. So basically free. Whoever would give us the list for free is the route we went, because free is always good.
Yes,
so we ended up with 8 states worth. And so we sent out emails to all of the licensed therapist assistants in those states. And it was just kind of, let's cast a wide net and see what we get back.
Okay. All right. So is there anything I should ask before I say, hit the drum roll and say like, all right, cool. You did science. We know what you're trying to find. What did we find out? Is there anything I didn't ask? Your silence is agreement.
Yes, I think you're good.
Hey, where are you going with your PT career? That's not rhetorical. I want to know. Would you like to embark on an extraordinary patient care adventure? That's what they call it. Some people might call it travel therapy. Find out more at jacksontherapy.com. This is perfect for physical therapists who are eager to make their mark. Discover where your skills can take you at jacksontherapy.com with Jackson Therapy Partners. And here's a question for you. You frustrated with your EMR? Feel like it should do more? Be easier? Yeah. Take the next step. Maybe try something new. How about an EMR that's all in one? Seamless integrations of patient portals, marketing automations, and billing, all at an unbeatable value. Plus, switching over is a breeze. See what you can do with MW Therapy and their all-in-one EMR at mwtherapy.com. And how would you like to boost your bottom line and help more people? You can do both of those things without having to work more. Smarter, not harder, kids. Boost your clinic's revenue by $290 per patient per quarter by adding remote therapeutic monitoring. You've heard about it, but you're like, I don't know where to get started. Is it complicated? Well, what if you knew where to get started and it wasn't complicated? That's what Physiotech is here for. Kickstart your RTM at physiotech.ca. That's physiotech.ca right now with Physiotech. Let's get into some cool findings. Who wants to go first?
Steven, I think you should start.
Okay.
You did a lot of the stats on the studies.
All right.
Sure,
What do we find?
Yeah.
What do we know now?
So one of the big correlations we did is we asked the response rate for the PTAs was a little lower than what we were anticipating and hoping for. So a lot of what we have focused on was the PT responses. So 1,300 PTs is a good sample size. And we zeroed in on one question in particular. Would you become a PT again? Would you do it over? And we dichotomized that into two groups, yes or no. And then we said, okay, looking at the people that said yes, what were their responses? And we looked at no, and what were their responses? So first off, the big reveal is that 41% of our sample said that they would not do PT school again.
41% said they would not do PT school again.
Yeah, 41.3% to be precise.
Good. Always good to have precision.
Yeah.
That was just based on the amount of debt they had.
Right.
Just the amount of debt. What'd you think about that?
That was a shock, I think, to all of us. Now,
what'd you personally think it was going to be before you sat down? You had to be taking a stab at it.
I don't know.
I'd say maybe 25%. It would have been my guess, just based on student loan debt. But yeah, almost 41% was pretty high.
Was there any parallel research in other professions that you guys looked at? Were asking similar questions? Like, could you look at physicians, auto mechanics? Like, did you look at anybody else who may have asked a similar question?
There were a few other studies that asked similar questions, but they weren't tied to debt. Sometimes they were tied to things such as job satisfaction or burnout. So we didn't really include that information in our study.
And my parallel goes to if you were selling a product that 41% of the people bought, and then you said, would you have bought that if you had a DeLorean and Doc Brown and a flux capacitor? Would you purchase that product again? And they said 4 out of 10 say no. That's hard to. That's a hard PR campaign to counter if you are in education and your product is educating people to get a degree.
Yep.
4 out of 10. All right.
Yeah,
what else did we find?
Good.
Not good. Could be worse. Could be 80%, but it wasn't great.
Right.
So what else did you find, or what else surprised you?
So a couple things. I don't think they were necessarily a surprise, but when we looked at the correlations, the students that went to public schools
Okay.
tended to say that, yes, they would go to do PT school again. And obviously then on the opposite side, those that went to private tended to say, no, they wouldn't. We also found that there was a bit of a bell curve with the years of experience. So remember our sample, we went from 0 to 10 years out.
Right.
And the new graduates were pretty darn excited, and they would still be a PT again. And then those that were 7 to 10 years out also said that, yeah, they do it again. But the 3 to 5 years, they were not happy campers in our sample. So they overwhelmingly said no, they were not going to do it again.
All right. Do we know why, or can we take a guess why that is? I mean, I mean, I'm going to say that the bright-eyed and bushy-tailed is they just been working on this thing, and it was like Tricia at the beginning of the episode. Like, I'm super excited to be here. Give it a minute; it'll wear off. And maybe, well, I don't want to do that. You tell me why you think that is.
So at that point, I mean, we're drawing assumptions. We don't know, right?
That's okay.
So that's the researcher answer. More research is
needed.
More
research is needed.
But I think that after that 3 to 5 years, you're in the slog of your career. Not sure. Maybe you're not getting the continuing ed that you needed. Writing those student loan checks are getting harder and harder to do. Maybe life changes are starting to come along. Buying a house, buying a car. Maybe seeing friends do those things that now you can't do. But then 7 to 10 years out, that's when maybe those loan payments, if you've been aggressive and paying off your student loans, things are looking better. Maybe you've had some advancements in your career, and so now you're making more money. So those are all just assumptions. Right. But we don't know for sure.
Yeah.
Some other interesting things. Going back to education, Justin alluded to that. Those that had a really good awareness of the debt to ratio before starting school were generally happy about becoming a PT again. And then those that had no education or little education and less awareness of their debt to income ratio, they weren't happy. They didn't know what they were getting themselves into. Sticker shock.
I mean, that's the non-technical, right? It's that lack of education.
Yeah. So I would say, in summary, those were the big ahas from our data. There's smaller things like parts of the country, some not a surprise, the parts of the country that are more expensive to live in. People were less enthused about becoming a PT because of the high cost of living. We that would be an assumption but those were the big three.
Another data point similar to what Steve was talking about too, we found that almost 60% of participants were not aware of the debt to income ratio before starting PT school. So kind of like you said about the sticker shock, many didn't know what they were aware of. And we also included areas in the survey where individuals could provide some comments. And you kind of mentioned you get a lot of anecdotes. And there were some really interesting comments in the responses as well. People saying just, I didn't know what I was getting into. And this is far more expensive, or there's certain aspects of PT education, such as housing during clinical education, was much more than I thought.
Someone did not read the syllabus.
No, they did not.
It's in the syllabus. All right, so interesting. What do we do with this? So I learned research, and I always hear it in my head because my professor in research in PT school was from Ireland. So he's got this cool accent, which I'm not going to do because I can't do it right. But he always said, listen, ask 3 questions. What? So what? Now what? So we figured out the what. We got a little bit of, the so what. Sort of, are we on to now what? Which is great. What do we do with this information? Our job isn't to change it, but I mean, I guess we'd all be rooting for that number, that 40% number to be a little lower. But also we'd like to change the things that would make that 40% number a little bit lower. Recommending changes. So what's now what?
Well, we did ask that as part of the survey as well. And so we wanted to hear from the people who are actually, of course, experiencing it and living it. And so what they recommended was just lower tuition. That's not a surprise.
Right.
Change the degree or program structure. You don't need to go 7 years to be a PT. Look at maybe a 2-year undergrad and then 3 years of school, something like that. Having debt management education built into programming, built into the education, and so it doesn't start, at their third year when they're getting ready to graduate. Have it before they even get into school, and then consistently throughout the length of the program. They recommended just advocating to anybody and everybody possible, government, CAPTI, profession, employers, you name it. Just that this needs to be at the forefront of everybody's thoughts.
Yeah.
Advocating also for scholarships, grants, opportunities for work study, things they can do while they're in PT school, increasing salaries. And those were the big main ones we gathered.
Those are the two sides of the seesaw, right? Would be lower the cost and increase what you can get out of it, right? And this goes back to, I don't think, and this is my personal belief, I don't think any one changes it. I think you need to work on as many as you can.
Agree.
But the you needs to be multiple people, right? This is why we have my personal opinion, is why you have a political action committee. That's advocacy. This is why you have, you have organizations or events like ELC to talk about these things, because if they're not talked about, people aren't going to know about them. I
was going to mention too, regarding debt management education, we found of the PTs that responded, only 18% stated that they received any type of financial education or debt management education in PT school.
Yeah.
And most of them said it was maybe just a 1 hour lecture presentation.
Right. Which is like comparable to I don't know. I got like an hour on like wound management. I think I just didn't want to look at those slides because they, freaked me out. But that's the thing, right? Is we avoid the thing that this goes back to us talking about before. It's like short, instant gratification versus something later. It's like, I don't want to pay attention to the bill. I'm doing the thing, man. I'm riding the ride. But that bill comes when you're done ordering all those things. Do you think that would more financial education before they started in PT school? That would in theory change the numbers, because the people who would say, if it's like this, I definitely don't want to be involved. So they're not going to be in your survey anymore.
Correct. And I think too, one other, data point that we found was there was a difference between those that did not have student loan debt from undergrad versus PT school. And so going back to our original data that, would we do PT school again? Carrying forward a lot of student loan debt. So it's not just the PT school loan debt, it's the aggregate amount. And we had some really good research ahead of time. Justin, I believe this is your data point, that at $150,000 of total student loan debt, the ROI for a PT degree is worse than any other health profession other than chiropractic and vet. So when you start adding in that undergrad debt to the total debt, boy, if you can pay that down ahead of time. So
let me translate this, and you correct me if I'm wrong. So it sounds like as if the debt hits a certain temperature, you don't have a long enough time to work for that to cool down. So it's like you hit a certain temperature where it's like it's the point of no return. It's like no matter how long you wait, or there's not enough time in your career to get that down. And while you're doing it, you're going to be annoyed because you're not doing the things that typically happen in people's lives, which might be buy a house, get married, have kids, because this thing is too high.
Yep, and I want to clarify that the data point Steven mentioned wasn't from my study; it was from someone else. But that's okay. But similar data point I had from a study 3 years ago in Journal of PT Education. That was the one that found that of almost a little over 700 PT students that responded to a survey right at the time of graduation, those with debt, about 75% would not. They would exceed the manageable debt to income ratio for a 10-year loan. 38.7% would not meet the requirements to pay back their loans in 25 years, and 21% would not meet even 25-year graduated loan repayment guidelines. So kind of like Steven said, for personal and professional impacts, it's not just going to be 10 years for student loan debt for a lot of physical therapists now. It may stretch out 25 years or more.
Yeah. That's this is the unscientific me coming in. It's a hard juice versus squeeze ratio. Yeah, it's cool. It's great juice, but that squeeze is.
And that was another area we asked respondents too is we asked them to state how, if student loan debt has impacted certain personal and professional life decisions, such as buying a home. 67.7% of PTs said that student loan debt had an impact. Getting married, 26%. Even going into professional decisions, working in one's ideal practice setting, 27.6% of respondents said student loan debt was having an impact on them being able to do that.
Yeah.
So you can see how this can snowball into more, burnout and job dissatisfaction, causing people to feel trapped with this huge loan they have to pay back, and maybe a setting they don't want to be in, but they feel like they have to just to make more money.
Yeah. I boil everything down. Typically, I was taught anyway in communications to boil everything down to an emotion. Like, why does this matter? Like, why? Everything's a why, right? Simon Sinek did a TED Talk and he's made a career on starts with why. And why finance is a big deal. It affects so many different things. Yeah, it does. It affects you on an emotional level. Like, you feel this, you carry this. This does not go away. When it's Friday and you leave the office, it's still there. It's affecting the fact that you maybe don't go on that vacation, or you don't buy the house, or you just feel that word that you just said, Justin, which is trapped. You feel claustrophobic. You feel, and then it starts to come out. Now the pressure surfaces in different ways, which is, I don't like doing this thing, because going to work reminds you of that bill you have to pay every month to that loan service provider. So it's the rock. It's not just the pebble in your shoe. It feels like, some razor blades in your Converse after a while. All right, so we talked about how the profession might change this. You got us the information. Where do you think that, give me your prediction? How do you think things will change? You guys work at academic institutions. How's it going to change? What's the future look like? How do you think this is going to play out for our profession in the next 10, 15, 25 years?
Well, I do think it's going to take that long for any kind of change.
Sure.
I think it's going to require everybody getting in the same room and on the same page and being willing to all give a little. The schools, government, CAPTE, students, you name it. It's got to happen.
But you don't have to answer as representatives of your academic institutions, right? But I'll say something, and you don't have to nod or shake your head. Why would it be in the school's best interest to lower tuition? They have a line, right? This comes into me, which is supply and demand. If you have 38 spots and you have 39 applicants, why would you lower the bar? And you might say, well, because of the greater good, because of these things. But this is where it's the goalposts are different. Schools and professions are not aligned necessarily for this. So again, if you have 38 spots, 38 seats, and 39 applicants, why would I do that? Why would I lower tuition? So that's.
I think one positive step taking place right now too is CAPTE is now requiring both PT and PTA programs to post publicly on their website a financial fact sheet stating this is how much our program costs. This is what the average student loan debt is from graduates last year, and they have to update it every single year, so it can't be old data, which is great. I just really hope that the word gets out more to prospective students to look at that, and when they're shopping around for schools, and that may help drive prices down potentially, or maybe just not increase as much as possible, especially in areas where there may be multiple programs.
Right.
So to your point, I think that's the tipping point. When we're not able to fill classes because the number of applicants, the qualified applicants, is down, I think that's when the table is going to shift to say, okay, how can we attract more people to this profession if 80% of the programs in the United States aren't filling their classes because there's nobody that wants to be a PT anymore. Yeah. I think that's what it's going to have to make a change. I predate, Tricia and I don't, but 1997, the Medicare Act of 1997 tipped the scales very unfavorably, and it forced a lot of PT schools to close because they didn't have enough people that are willing to go into student loan debt for a low salary. Not a great time to graduate, by the way.
Right. And people talk about that. I've talked to people and they're like, you don't understand. And that's the funny part is I don't understand because I've never known that. But so I'm not saying these things can't shift. All you have to do is look backwards and say like shift is possible. But as Tricia mentioned, these things do typically take time. But, an applicant does not equal an applicant, right? Like, so qualified applicant is one thing, great applicant. Like, we in the profession want as many great applicants.
Right.
I'm sure schools deep down inside want great people coming to their school. But right now, an applicant versus a qualified applicant versus a great applicant, 3 different things. And a lot of times we're saying, well, we want the smartest, and the smartest people can do math and they are educated, and they say, this is a great profession, but juice isn't worth the squeeze. So, it could be, I've heard before, the canary in the coal mine, where they're like, they're not in any of our surveys because they left. They took a peek, looked at your research and said, it's not worth it. I'm leaving. But you don't feel that effect for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And that's probably hard to measure, right? Like brain drain on a particular profession. How do you measure that? How do you measure what coulda, shoulda, woulda? Probably difficult.
Great questions. I'm not sure any of us in the room have answers to that.
I've told people before on this show, this is my life hack for sounding like a very interesting person at a dinner party, is just ask questions. Never answer them. Just then go to your chin, stroke your chin, and present the wizard beard, as I mentioned before. Is there anything else about this you guys would want to mention before we get to do your parting shot? This is where you get to sound prophetic. Anything you didn't say?
I would just, my final message to students would be savvy consumers and do your homework. That physical therapy is a great profession, but they need to know how to make it great for them personally, financially, and professionally.
Hold on, Tricia, that was a parting shot. We got to do the sound effecty thing.
This is the parting shot.
There we go. All right, parting shot brought to you by the Academy of Orthopedic Physical Therapy and their leading resource to get your OCS, which is their current concepts of orthopedic PT in their 5th edition. Find it online now at orthopt.org. Tricia, do you have anything inspiring to students to say as your parting shot?
Yes, I do. Thanks for
asking. All right, lay it on us.
So my final message to students out there, I would just say be savvy consumers and do your homework. Physical therapy is a great profession. It's one of the best out there. But do your homework, research how you can make it work for you personally, financially, and professionally.
With anything, there's going to be risk and reward, right? I mean, I've got friends who went to school and they make a lot of money and they are deeply unhappy because they're doing the thing they don't like. Hey, no debt, and I make a lot of money. It's like, well, in the end, happiness is a factor, right? So job satisfaction is a factor. Steven, what is your parting shot? Good luck following Tricia.
Yeah, that's hard to follow. I guess my big thing is you can do it. I was that student. I had an unmanageable amount of debt. A low salary, high debt. My student loan payment was on a 30-year graduated program, meaning I couldn't pay very much money, at 8.25%. And the only loan forgiveness program at that point in time was death.
Yeah,
so
that's one to get in. Easy to get in, but hard. It's a very expensive one to get.
Yeah, and so I paid that off in 7 years.
Wow.
And so you can roll up your sleeves, dig deep. I didn't count on anybody. And I think that we are all able to do it, but it takes a lot of grit to do it.
Can I ask you this? Did you educate yourself with a person or resources to because I think a lot of times people are like, well, the only answer is just lots of money, so I'm going to go make money. But there are other ways to do this, and there are people who have educations in financial management who can show you how to do that effectively. So you're not just guessing. Did you use any resources like people or things, or what did you do?
Yeah, big shout out to Dave Ramsey.
So there are right and wrong ways to do things, right?
Precisely.
And if this is my life hack again, right? Not just ask questions that sound interesting. People are usually the solution, and they either write a book or have a pot. It's people, right? It's people all the way down.
Right.
So whatever you're sort of most claustrophobic or scared of, like lean in and get the right answer. There's an anecdote. Did you ever hear the basement window anecdote? It's about a guy who buys a house and his kid throws a baseball and it breaks this really nice stained glass basement window. And he's like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so much expensive. And he puts off getting it fixed. And then, of course, it rains and it snows and then water damage and this and this. And then over the years, and finally 10 years later, he's like, I'm going to get this window fixed. Turns out the window getting fixed was $200. And the damage of him waiting, because emotionally he didn't want to know what it would cost. He didn't want that sticker shock. He avoided it. $10,000 in damages for a $200 window. So don't let that happen. Right? Educate.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Go to the hardware store and just ask, what's the damage here? All right, Justin, your parting shot. What do you got?
I would say for new graduates or students about to graduate, I'd say really look. There's a lot of great opportunities right now. Some parts of the country, right now, upper Midwest, it's the best job market for PTs and PTAs in 15 years. There's a lot of positions right now. PTs are in demand. So I would say be willing to be adventurous. Move a little further away from maybe what you're thinking about and just check things out because there's some great opportunities out there.
Two things to piggyback on that. You said adventurous. One of the sponsors of this podcast is Jackson Therapy Partners. They do travel physical therapy assignments, which something even when I graduated not that long ago was like, absolutely not. New grads, absolutely not. And we see, not anecdotal, but we see, so it is anecdotal. We see people saying, I'm loving this. Like, I feel great. I feel like my skills are progressing and I'm making more money because I provide a service that has higher value. Therefore, I get paid more. So you don't just need to do travel assignments too. Large organizations who are having staffing problems are willing to negotiate on things like they're now installing things like student loan repayment as part of a benefit for giving them certain lengths of time in terms of work. So there are ways to negotiate. You have there's something very valuable about what you have and know and can do. Utilize that, right? I can see Dave Ramsey saying, but you got this degree and that's all you're getting out of it? Well, hey, reimbursement's down. That's the only way you can use that degree? No. And organizations that need you, if you have a conversation with those, there's a way to find out a mutually beneficial solution. And then everybody wins. So I would say do that. But you can now see that is I hear a lot about organizations trying to fill spots, and the words that come up are student loan. We see that problem. And that's smart from their end because they're getting your attention and getting the best and the brightest, saying, yeah, that would be an added bonus. Maybe it's not just salary. Maybe it's this other thing that has value. So look for those things if that's something that's weighing on you. Where can everybody find this research? I probably should have led, as a good podcast host, I should have led with that, but we'll put it in the show notes, so they'll get it as soon as they tap on it. But where can everybody find this?
Well, right now we had quite a few posters at CSM and ELC last year. We are, with this data set, we're kind of breaking it apart into 3 manuscripts right now. The first one is we just submitted a revisions. We're hoping that will be accepted soon, and we're starting on the second one. So we're a little slow in getting it out there, but we're hoping it'll be out there in the wild soon.
Can I ask you this with posters? Do you guys get templates from your academic institutions to use? We got to have a conversation. I'm presenting at CSM. I'm going to use a buddy of mine, this guy Mike Morrison. Did I ever share his video with you? I'll put that in the show notes too. Mike Morrison used to design websites, and then he went and got his PhD in psychology. And he decided to look at scientific posters from a psychological, organizational psychology, knowledge translation point of view. And since he was a website designer, he knows how to make things pretty. And he gives away a free template that is scientifically proven to transmit more information than the typical poster, which is scientifically proven to just fit on a PowerPoint screen. That's the only thing. It was just a photocopy of a photocopy. But this is sort of like the episode after the episode. So I'm going to bring it up at my talk at CSM to show you why, I go, Mike is nicer. I say your poster sucks. It doesn't have to be that way. Here's a better version. He says it nicer in his YouTube video, which has more than 1 million views. But this is a situation where knowledge is power. Because I think what you have here is terribly valuable. And the more people that know about it, the faster change happens. That's why there's that. But if we can reduce that 17-year gap from, what they say, bench to bedside, and if we do it in 7 years, gosh, wouldn't that be great? The answer is yes. All right. Well, Justin, thanks for coming back. Tricia and Steven, we appreciate you taking out the time to come on the show.
All right. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys. They say the best conversations happen at happy hour. Welcome to ours.